So this is my 65 Mustang that I am trying to finish for the Moroso car show right here in Guilford, and that is only 2 weeks away. So I don't know how I'm gonna do it, but you know, most of the engine bay is intact. New brakes just set up and bled tonight. Tons of rust and patchwork done. Still in progress, mind you. Fenders off, front clip off. No glass, interior completely gutted. Just got done doing some firewall work. And yeah, I'm trying to anticipate driving it in literally 2 weeks. And I don't have time off from work to do that. So, you know, I don't know how I'm gonna do that. But oh, you know, it's got taillights on it. It's got a bumper and rear valance. So I guess that's going for it. Okay, so as you guys saw from that little clip there, I gave myself a deadline, and my deadline was going to be Moroso Performance's first annual car show in a very long time. And a couple reasons being is, number one, they're located right in my hometown, so that was going to be a great first test of the car and shakedown run, as a lot of people would say. Number two, I just love Moroso, you know, being that, you know, they were like fabrication and like manufacturer in my hometown that doesn't really do a whole lot of manufacturing or that type of industry. I always thought that they were really cool, and I mean, you just cannot beat the history behind Moroso. I mean, they just make some really cool parts. They did some really cool stuff with Corvettes over the years. And another reason being was that I was actually contacted by Penelope Moroso to do their flyer for the event. So I photographed a ton of their cars, and I got a tour of the inside facility. Check out these posters they have up on the wall still. I got a lot of my inspiration from those. And here's some of the shots that I took in preparation for the flyer. And I asked them if they could pay me in literally, you know, Moroso parts, to which they said, of course. And I just want to make sure you guys caught that, because they're a funny crowd at Moroso. But they said last time someone was up that high, the whole thing tipped over. So that was hilarious. But yeah, so from about probably April, a couple weeks in April, we hustled to get this flyer done. I'm super proud of it, and I was super stoked to work with, number one, the whole Moroso family, but number two, specifically Penelope Moroso. She has really taken the whole marketing end of the company off, and I just love to see another young female in the industry doing her thing. I think it's totally sick. So thanks again, Penelope, for the opportunity. But I had a long list of stuff ahead of me. I mean, look at some of the stuff that was going on in this car. So not only was there a nail as a cotter pin over here, which was super not tight, which also led to shifter slap and slop, but the bolt in here is literally finger tight and covered in grease, and there's absolutely no bushing in here, and there's supposed to be not one, but two. No wonder why this car wouldn't start half the time. It didn't know it was in park. So between that and the brakes, which are from literally 1999, and I don't know if anyone ever changed a fluid in this Master since, which also, I mean, look at it, it's a single pot. I don't think anyone ever changed this thing out either. They probably used the original Master. I was pretty alarmed and definitely wanted to get these things done before I took this car anywhere else any further. And in the meantime, too, I made some fumbles along the way, like this. I don't even know what's happening here, except apparently there's a pinhole leak out of my brand new wheel cylinder seal. How does that happen? And I learned the answer upon how that happens is when you forget to put your drums back on and you start to bleed the brakes and you overextend the springs in the wheel cylinder. But anyways, finally got those done, finally got those bled, did the shifter bushings, and then I decided it was time to do something with that interior. So my boyfriend Lee, he came over to help, and we started scuffing and preparing to do a black interior conversion on this car. Why did I do a black interior conversion on this car? Probably because the car was red with a blue interior. That looked horrible. I also knew I kind of wanted to do a black interior conversion because that was just kind of like the look I was after. And I didn't know how long I'd be keeping the car red for, and I just was kind of embarrassed at the whole color combo that was going on. So we hustled to get this done at like 9 o'clock at night on a weeknight at some point. I think it was like one of the cooler nights in early August, which you can imagine there's not many of. And it was still very hot, but it had to get done. We had to wait for them to dry, and, you know, it was just something that needed to be done in the many steps of reassembling this car. I believe we used like a POR satin black or something along the lines of that. We reduced it a little bit just to get the satin to be definitely satin. I know sometimes the satin black can kind of come out looking more glossy than it needs to. But like I said, we reduced it a little bit to get the right sheen we were looking for. And Lee is essentially a professional painter. He did this for a living with smaller scale stuff at one of his other jobs. So he's a pro. So I let him, you know, take a stab at it, and I just, you know, documented along the way. So that was a really exciting process. I forget what grit we sanded with, but we did a lot of Scotch-Brite. I want to say probably 400 grit sandpaper. Peep that unmolested, not cut out radio in the dash. That was one of the things that I really loved about this car. So thankfully we didn't have to do like any like repairs to any of the metalwork on the inside, which was really nice. You'd be surprised too with a little bit of a dusty garage and not a whole lot of ventilation or things of that nature. The paint actually came out really, really nice. The biggest thing I was worried about was making sure that the faux leather skin texture on the door panels and obviously the panels that go by the bench seat in the back, making sure that we didn't put paint on too thick, which is why I had actually completely stripped the rear panels just to make sure that all of that texture was completely revealed, so that, you know, we could get that texture back. Because, you know, I've driven a lot of these first gen Mustangs. I've, you know, been able to photograph a lot of them. One of the biggest turnoffs to me is when you lose that metal texture in the door panels and stuff of that nature. So we made sure that when, you know, we were going to put the paint on, that we took our time and did not go too heavy or too thick on anything, because that was a really important part. The other nice thing too was that we didn't have a whole lot of bugs to worry about that night for whatever reason. So thankfully I didn't really have any serious, you know, nibs or bugs or things of that nature that we needed to, you know, wet sand or polish out of the paint. So all in all, I was really stoked. I mean, this was a super budget job, as you can see. I mean, poor guy needed help holding lights and stuff, and, you know, we kind of did it very grassroots style. But, you know, I mean, that works, and that really gets you there. But, you know, once again, the biggest thing is always in the prep. Make sure that you wipe everything down with alcohol before you go to paint, and let the alcohol dry and evaporate first. Yeah, if you have any questions about this process, comment below and let me know, because I'd be happy to, you know, walk you through it. Key trick for putting in a headliner: buy some extra windlace and use that as your trim to hold down the sections of headliner. That saved me a lot of headache and so much time. And then once I started to see the door panels come in, I was like, oh my God, this is looking like a car again. So that was so exciting. Then taking the wiring and, you know, starting to put accessories back on. Huge. You know, this is the most exciting part of a restoration, is when everything gets to be put back on and put back together. Wednesday night. Still need to do a few things, but we're getting there. This was literally the Wednesday night before the car show, and this was like probably the first time like starting it up and letting it actually idle. I mean, it was really down to the wire at this point. Brakes and the shifter bushings and shifter linkage just being awry, that was really the only two major concerns I had with this car. So once I got it back up and running again, it was time to take my brother for a little test ride in case, you know, something catastrophic happened. But I mean, of course, as you would expect, the car did absolutely fine thereafter. So it was getting closer and it started to feel more and more real. But I shouldn't also just skip over all of the bodywork that had to be done. So original V8 fenders that the emblem holes were filled in. Look at what was going on with my cowl. The driver's side was horrible. I don't know how the passenger side had like no issues whatsoever. But the firewall on the passenger side did. So these are just some of the shots and progress along the way. The new floors that someone had put in, they were never attached to the frame rails, so I went ahead and added those for obvious concerns. There's a great post online showing how many holes to have. I made sure to follow that. And I started to add the torque box. So the passenger side has a torque box currently. The driver's still doesn't, but that's another discussion for a different time. You can see by the end of this, I started to get pretty good with how I was cutting all of my patch panels and whatnot. And once again, blending wherever I could the metalwork and trying to keep as much original as possible. Lee painted the bottom of the gas tank, which came out great. Once that was done and dried, I painted the inside of the trunk using literally just some close match to Caspian Blue from AutoZone. It was obviously not a close match. But yeah, I mean, just a slideshow going through like all of the things I got done between April to August. I fixed some rot at the bottom of the fenders, redid the inside of the taillights, redid some of the paint on the front clip and the inner fender. I did a Raptor liner, which came out, I think, really nice. I waxed the inside orifices of chrome. There were a few setbacks, like some, you know, door cards were difficult. The glass, I put the gasket in upside down. That was a nightmare figuring out. But the sweetest thing was I got to put my father's original steering wheel for his fastback on the car, and I made it to the show, and I made it back. Which was really nice feeling. Seeing the flyer around town too was also really cool in preparation for the show. So thank you again to, you know, the Moroso family. Super honored for the opportunity, and I'm so psyched I got this done for that event.